Even though this series is only one episode in, I can say with about 99% accuracy that this episode will be the most boring. At least as far as building goes. Before we went to Home Depot, we had to sit down and crunch numbers. No one shows the budgeting part of the build, and it's for good reason. It's boring. Once we finished, it was time to measure the floors. While we gathered things for flooring, we won't actually be starting that in this episode. You see, even though our van is 1 year old, it still has seen some use. Before we owned the van, it was part of a rental fleet, and as the cargo vans do, it was used to haul, well, cargo. This worked away at the paint, and to give us peace of mind in the long run, we had to make sure any exposed metal won't rust. So for this part of the build and this episode, we focused on priming and painting the floor.
Clenched fist can't plant a seed.
We headed to Green Bay to go to the great land of home improvement. That's right, the Home Depot.
The Home Depot.
Hey, it's gonna be alright. I feel it in my heart. It's gonna be alright. You're gonna find your way. It's gonna be alright. Hey, hey, hey. It's very hard to let things go. It's hard to carry on. Hey, hey, hey. But if you won't try, you won't know.
We quickly gathered materials for the floor and the Rust-Oleum primer and paint, and loaded everything in the van. Once we were home, we unloaded everything and got to work.
I need time to find my mind, find my place, and flourish. I'm the reason, I'm the motion, I'm just giving you the potion. I hope you know this. Drink from my sunshine, sip from my rainbows, deliciously mango. I think it's
First step was to sweep any extra dust and debris, and then use steel wool to create a good surface for the primer.
how far can you fall? Afraid of it.
Essentially sanding down the coat of gloss the original paint had on it to be able to prime it.
For me, see it in everything, implode with blessings, blessings for me. This is
When we were done sanding, Jordan used the air compressor to blow any excess filings away.
with my dream. Just want the best for myself. So
Now we were ready to prime.
These gloves say one size fits all. They definitely do not fit all. My hand ends there. Look. This is it. Josh is right now removing those black things there. This. He's taking these off before we paint the primer on the floor so that when we put the flooring in, we don't have to take them off and scratch the rust-proof paint that we just put in. Right, Josh?
Right, baby.
I think it's a syndrome. Got me somewhere blown. Show me the door. How far can you fall? Freedom in galaxies. Mapped out my fantasies. Signs that were made for me. See it in everything. Implode with blessings for me. This is reality.
Once we were done, we called it a night, as you have to let the primer sit for about 16 hours.
Okay, so we just finished the first step, which is to put down the primer for the rust prevention layer, I guess, that goes down on the existing floor. There was no existing rust, but there was exposed metal, so this is to prevent that. We used this Rust-Oleum clean metal primer. So we cleaned the floor first and took steel wool to it, and then used this primer. And then tomorrow we'll put the layer of rust coat paint over, and then we can start with the flooring.
First night. First night of working on the van.
Pretty exciting stuff.
All right, day 2, we're heading back to the van, and hopefully the primer is dry so we could put the paint on. And we gotta wait for that to dry. Pretty dry. Yeah, it looks good. Before we started painting, I thought it would be a good idea to take off our shoes, as we had just been walking in snow. And the whole point of this is to avoid rust caused by moisture. So that's it. I told you it would be boring, but a lesson learned is go slow for peace of mind. While budgeting and priming are pretty boring activities within themselves, they set up a nice foundation for your structure, whether that's a van or your life. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, hit that like button to let me know. And if you are new to the channel, consider subscribing. At the time I'm recording this voiceover, we are approaching 400 subs, which is absolutely mind-blowing. Never thought I'd have this much support from you guys. So thanks again. I will see you in the next one. Till then, remember to stay stoked on spokes.